Next on Life Focus.
He lost control of his truck, swerved over my lane. The 9 wheels of the truck rolled over my car.
Don Piper died instantly.
They did all the tests they had at their disposal and determined that I was deceased.
But in reality, his new life was just beginning.
I was driving along a highway one moment, and the very next moment, a fraction of a second, I'm actually standing at the gates of heaven.
90 minutes later, a passerby witnesses his miraculous return to life.
I think his actual words were, "The dead man is singing." Well, that's not something that, you would typically hear. And so, well, you just think, it's air escaping from the lungs. We've checked him, we've run all the tests. We're medical professionals. We know a dead body.
Today on Life Focus, the man who went to heaven and back.
Heaven is a buffet for the senses. It is a sensory explosion. All the sights that we have here, that we see, if I'm standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon and I'm looking at the sunset, I'm thinking, this is just awesome. Heaven is a million times more beautiful than that.
Hello, welcome to Life Focus. I'm Dan Meyer. For over 30 years now, the medical and scientific communities have been trying to prove or disprove the validity of near-death experiences. Do afterlife encounters really happen, or are they just a figment of imagination, perhaps a biological response to trauma? 90 minutes after paramedics declared him dead, Don Piper of Pasadena, Texas, came back to life. Today, he'll tell you that his near-death encounter was the most real experience he has ever had. Karen Coy has the story.
I was fascinated with the whole prospect of near-death experiences, but very skeptical.
In the late 1980s, Don Piper, a busy pastor and father of 3, might have been cynical when people described their experiences after being declared clinically dead, but he never doubted the reality of heaven.
I knew it was breathtakingly beautiful. I knew that it was eternal. I just didn't see how a person could really die and go to heaven and come back and talk about it.
But all that changed one rainy day in 1989. It was here at the Veterans of Foreign Wars Memorial Bridge north of Houston that Don Piper died.
People need to know that heaven is real, and I had a chance to see that.
His chance came after attending a pastor's convention at Trinity Pines Conference Center, several hours north of Houston. The journey began with a small but fateful decision.
That day I paused at the gate and really just decided to go a different route.
Don's new route headed south on Texas Highway 19.
It was raining, cold, the windshield wipers are going.
At 11:45 a.m., he approached the long and narrow Memorial Bridge.
And I couldn't see beyond the end of the bridge. I had a 110-mile-an-hour impact with a big truck. I never saw the truck. There was no reaction time.
The two vehicles collided head-on.
I was driving along a highway one moment, and the very next moment, a fraction of a second, I'm actually standing at the gates of heaven. There was no sense of passing. There was no transition. There was no tunnel.
Don cannot recall the 90 minutes on Earth, but vividly remembers his experience in a more glorious place.
The brilliance of the light, the magnificence of the light is beyond anything I have ever gazed upon here on Earth. It is almost as if everything is alive. It just glistens.
Several other vehicles were involved in the accident. The truck rolled over the top of Don's Ford Escort, crushing his body.
My internal organs had really been crushed. The roof of the car collapsed on my head, and I had been bleeding from the ears and the eyes and the mouth and nose, which were all brain damage signs.
The arm was basically in the back seat. I mean, those were very apparent injuries.
The dash came across both of my legs, just kind of like a guillotine.
A guillotine that crushed his right leg and nearly severed his left leg above the knee.
4 inches of the femur, the largest bone in the human body, was ejected from the car, apparently out the window into the lake because it was never located.
His left arm was also nearly severed and missing several inches of bone.
Eventually, 4 ambulances arrived. They ran EKGs. They did all the tests they had at their disposal and determined that I was deceased. A policeman got a waterproof tarp out of his squad car, came over to my vehicle so no one would have to see what I looked like in the car. It was quite awful to look at.
The news of the accident reached Don's wife, Eva, but she was not told the accident was fatal.
There's been a wreck, and Don's been hurt. That's all they knew at that point in time. And the thing I remember most about that is just a very real sense of peace. Just covered me from my head to my toes. And I knew he was going to be okay.
But medical personnel at the scene believed differently.
They actually phoned for the county official, a justice of the peace, to come to the scene to sign documents which would allow the body to be transported to a mortuary.
Until this man came to the scene.
And I was a stranger to him.
The late Dick Honorecker, seen here in a previously recorded interview, was also on his way home from the pastor's conference and stopped to help.
Very candidly, it was as though I was compelled to stop and to pray for him. The Lord just impressed on me very emphatically, very urgently, that I was to pray for him.
So Dick approached one of the officers and said, is there anyone here I can pray for? And he was told no, because the 2 people in the other 2 cars had actually been transported. And I, of course, was deceased, so they said, quite honestly, there is no one to pray for.
But Dick insisted.
And I laid my hands on him and began to pray for him, that there be no internal injuries and there be no head injuries.
At 1:15 p.m., a full 90 minutes after Don Piper had been declared dead, the unbelievable happened.
And I'm hearing a voice behind me, and that voice is the voice of Dick Honorecker.
I began to sing, and all of a sudden I heard him singing with me.
Hearing his own voice singing jarred this survivor back to earth.
I was in utter brilliance in heaven. Now I'm in the dark, and I'm thinking, why is it dark?
His next sensation? Excruciating pain.